somewhere between always being available and quietly choosing not to be. A man reaches a point he didn't expect, not out of bitterness or revenge, but because something inside him goes still, like a door closing in a house he no longer wants to live in. He doesn't announce it. He doesn't even plan it. One day he just doesn't reply right away. He doesn't explain the shift. He doesn't rearrange his day to prove anything. He simply stops showing up for a woman who never truly saw him unless he was convenient. And that's when it happens, her confusion, her discomfort, the slow unraveling of the control she never admitted she held. You weren't trying to make a point. You were just tired. Tired of explaining yourself. Tired of being a yes man in a role that drained you. Tired of feeling invisible unless you were performing. So you stopped giving what was never returned. Not to punish, but to preserve. At first, she plays it cool. She assumes you'll come back like always. You've done it before, answered texts within seconds, shifted plans just to be near her, stayed patient while she offered crumbs and called it love. But this time, you don't rush. You're not angry. You're just not available. And she feels it. She doesn't say much. She might send a short message, maybe something vague, just enough to test the waters. But she's not reaching out because she misses you. She's reaching because the rhythm has changed, and she doesn't know how to dance without you leading it. What she misses isn't you, it's the access, the power, the ability to pull you close with a glance, to expect your time without earning it. That quiet control she enjoyed now feels like an empty room. And your absence? It echoes louder than your presence ever did. Carl Jung taught that we live out unconscious patterns until we finally see them. This moment is that shift, when the man who once clung out of fear now sits in silence without apology. You're not explaining. You're not chasing. You're not softening your tone just to keep the peace. And now she's left to wonder. She scrolls through old messages. She rewatches her own behavior. Not out of love, but out of insecurity. She's wondering why the man who used to orbit her has drifted out of reach, and if he'll ever come back. But you won't, not like before, because once you've tasted stillness, performance feels like betrayal. You didn't set out to change the dynamic. You just stopped fueling it. And that's what turned everything. She didn't lose you when you walked away. She lost you the moment you stopped needing her to see you. That was the beginning of your return to yourself. You didn't become available because you were weak. You became available because no one ever showed you what boundaries looked like. Because long before any woman entered your life, you had already learned that approval comes when you abandon yourself. You weren't born to chase, but you were shaped to. Shaped by early lessons that told you to be the good boy, the calm one, the fixer. You got praised when you made things easier. You got love when you stayed quiet, adjusted, gave in. And slowly, without realizing it, you started to believe that being chosen meant being useful. Not strong, not clear, just useful. So when you met her, the woman who caught your attention, who seemed just out of reach, you did what you'd always done. You offered, you waited, you gave, you smiled through discomfort, and when she didn't notice, you gave more. Not because you were desperate, but because deep down, being overlooked felt normal. Being invisible felt familiar. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we create to survive. Yours was shaped around service. You became what she wanted, or what you thought she wanted. You adjusted your energy to fit hers. You bent so she'd never walk, and every time she tested your limits, You softened instead of standing still. But here's what you missed. She never respected that version of you. Because no one respects a man who disappears into pleasing. You were there, always, but not fully. You gave her time, attention, affection, but you withheld the one thing she needed to feel your presence, your edge. And that's the paradox. The more available you became, the less visible you felt. You were everywhere, but she couldn't feel you. Because presence is not about proximity, it's about power. It's about being rooted in who you are, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Think back. How many times did you say yes when you meant no? How many times did you explain yourself, not because she asked, but because you feared silence? How often did you step into roles you never wanted? Therapist, cheerleader, emotional sponge, just to keep her close. You thought love was a reward. You thought if you stayed, she'd see. But all she saw was a man slowly unraveling himself to be worthy. And that's not love. It's performance. You weren't wrong for wanting connection, but the version of you that kept showing up wasn't real. It was the persona, the trained response, the inner child still trying to prove he deserved to stay. And here's the truth most men never hear. The moment you give more than you mean, you lose her interest. Not because she's cruel, but because you've stopped leading. You've stopped being solid. You've become an echo of her desires instead of a man with his own. She won't say it. She might not even understand it. But the moment she sensed you were always available, she stopped craving you. Because what's always there loses value. What bends too easily stops being seen. And that's what you became. Not a man, but a mirror. Reflecting what she wanted, forgetting what you needed. Until one day, you wake up tired of being chosen only when it's easy. And that's when the mask starts to crack. She doesn't come closer because she suddenly understands you. She comes closer because something she relied on has disappeared. And now she feels it. Not as heartbreak, but as imbalance. The moment you stop answering on cue, her tone shifts. She doesn't accuse, not right away. She plays subtle. A short message, a sudden check-in, a memory she brings up, seemingly out of nowhere. It's not affection, it's calibration. She's watching how fast you respond. She's measuring how much of her grip still remains. When you were predictable, she never had to think. You were there, reliable, present. But now your silence is louder than anything you could say. You don't respond like before. You wait. You read the message and put your phone down. You return to your life, and that, to her, is unsettling. You haven't changed. You've just stopped explaining. You've stopped softening your voice to sound agreeable. You've stopped reacting to every cue. And now she's not dealing with the man she used to control. She's facing the version of you that no longer needs her validation to breathe. Carl Jung said that what you resist not only persists, it grows in power. She resists your silence, and it gets heavier. She tries charm. She tries guilt. Sometimes she even pretends not to care. But behind it all is one simple truth. She can no longer predict you, and unpredictability is the death of manipulation. She might flirt harder. She might act indifferent. She might ask if something is wrong, not because she cares about your inner world, but because she needs to know where she stands. It's not emotional closeness she wants, it's control. This isn't always conscious. Many women don't realize they're doing it. But when a man pulls back, the feminine instinct often isn't to understand. It's to regain control. Not of him as a person, but of the feeling of being desired. You were never just you. You were a supply, attention, affirmation, comfort. The proof that she could reach out and still hold your focus. And now that supply is gone, or selective. And that's when the panic begins. You'll notice her frustration grow. You'll see the tests return. A passive comment, a delayed reply. A sigh loud enough to be heard, but quiet enough to deny. None of it is random. It's a probe. She's checking how much of the old version of you is still alive. Most men fold here. They feel guilt. They feel pressure. They try to fix what isn't broken. But the only thing that's changed is you've stopped leaking energy into someone who wasn't giving it back. She doesn't love you more now. She's just uncertain, and uncertainty is what attraction thrives on. Not because it's a game, but because real masculine energy doesn't chase approval. It commands attention through presence. So when she reaches out again, and you don't react the way she expects, she'll either adjust or disappear. And either outcome tells you everything. Because if love was real, it would have never needed control. The more you made yourself available, the more you disappeared. Not in a dramatic way, but slowly, like water leaking through a cracked jar. At first, it looked like love. You said yes to everything. You were there at midnight when she wanted to talk. You changed your schedule to match hers. You listened when she vented. You tried to be solid, dependable, emotionally present. You gave so much of yourself that eventually there wasn't much left. You thought this was the right thing. You thought sacrifice was strength. But what you didn't realize was that your constant availability was training her to see you as background noise. Not because she was ungrateful, but because you taught her that your time didn't cost anything. Carl Jung warned that a man who loses his center begins to live through others. And that's what happened. You weren't living your own life anymore. You were orbiting hers. You paused your goals. You ignored your rest. You gave your energy freely. And each time you did, your value dropped in her eyes. She didn't feel your strength because you hid it. She didn't feel the weight of your presence because it was always available. This doesn't mean you were weak. It means you were conditioned. Somewhere along the way, you learned that love comes through effort. That if she's happy, you're safe. That if she needs you, she'll keep you. So you overgave, you overshowed, you overcommitted. But here's what no one told you. A man who doesn't guard his time becomes a tool. Not intentionally, but functionally. He becomes the fixer, the emotional shock absorber, the safety net. And she stops seeing the man. She sees the service. Think about it. When was the last time you said no without explaining? When was the last time you left her message unread because you were deep in your own life? When was the last time you felt like your presence was optional in your own story? Most men don't realize how much of themselves they've given away until they're running on empty. They don't see how often they've stepped into roles that don't serve them. They're too busy proving they're good men. And in the process, they lose the very thing that made them magnetic in the first place: self-respect. Jung called this fragmentation, the slow separation from the true self. When you become who the world wants, you forget who you are. And once you forget, you can't lead. You can't attract. You can't command. That's the real cost of being too available. You don't just lose her interest, you lose your edge. And when your edge is gone, your purpose blurs. Your strength weakens. And the world no longer feels you when you enter a room. You were never meant to give all of yourself away. You were meant to give from overflow. And overflow only happens when you build before you offer. So now you stop. Not to punish her, but to find yourself again. She didn't expect you to stay silent. She didn't think you would stop explaining yourself. She thought the old version of you, the one who bent, the one who chased, would always return. But you didn't. And that's when everything about you began to change. You started walking slower, not out of hesitation, but out of clarity. You didn't need to rush into conversations that drained you. You didn't feel the urge to prove anything. You weren't cold, but your attention was no longer free. You started choosing what you responded to, who you gave your time to, where your energy went. And that's when the noise began to fade. Carl Jung called this individuation, the return to self after years of performing. It's not a loud moment. It doesn't come with applause. It starts in the quiet. When you wake up and don't reach for your phone. When you read a message and feel nothing stir in you. When you realize you no longer feel the need to be understood. The man you're becoming doesn't live to correct misunderstandings. He doesn't explain silence. He doesn't soften his strength to be palatable. He stands where he is, not out of arrogance, but because he's built something inside that no longer needs constant approval to feel alive. You'll notice the change first, then others will. You'll say less, but people will listen when you speak. You'll be in the room, and the energy will shift, not because you demand attention, but because you've reclaimed it. She may still reach out, but she won't know what to do with you now. You're not the same. You're still kind, still grounded, but no longer predictable. And that unpredictability is your strength. It's not about withholding love. It's about protecting your peace. It's about refusing to offer your soul as a solution to someone else's chaos. You've stopped reacting to her storms. You've stopped trying to be her emotional anchor. You've started to recognize that not every problem needs your involvement. Some things are meant to fall apart without you. That's the power of the unavailable man. He's not emotionally distant. He's emotionally disciplined. He doesn't run from love. He simply refuses to bleed for it. And here's the strange thing. The more you pull inward, the more magnetic you become. You'll attract less noise, fewer games, but more truth. You'll lose women who needed control, but you'll start to notice the ones who value peace over chaos. Women who don't need to conquer you to feel worthy. You'll look in the mirror and see a man who isn't drained, a man who didn't compromise his center just to keep a connection. You'll feel still, not passive, still. Rooted, grounded, awake. Jung warned that the modern man is over-identified with what others expect of him. But once you strip all that away, what's left is simple. You. And that version of you doesn't chase. He doesn't explain. He doesn't apologize for protecting his energy. He just lives, sovereign, silent, selective. And she either meets him there or fades trying. If this spoke to something you've never said out loud, like it, subscribe if you felt it, and share it, because someone else is carrying the same silence, and this might be the moment they finally wake up.